found these guys locally, I wanted them. I really wanted them. I wanted them in my possession. It was just kind of one of those redemption fish for me. Let's say I've seen these, I've kind of had them in my possession, but now I have successfully spawned these guys. Seen wild caught, fully grown adults, and they are immaculate. They're gorgeous to look at. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Well-Done Tanks. It is a very exciting time here as we have a lot of things happening all at once, and I thought this was a perfect opportunity to teach you the method that I am using to hatch my spawns of fish successfully, and I've done it a few times now. So the other night I came home from work and it was a very exciting time as I go check on the fish room. Then I come up here into my studio where I have a few tanks running, and honestly they weren't always meant to be breeding projects, more kind of a display project slash breeding if it happened, and it happened. So I want to teach you, like I said, to prepare for when you have a spawn of fish. One, even if you're aggressively attempting to spawn them, or if you come into a surprise spawn, I want to teach you how you're going to be successful in hatching that spawn and then moving forward from there. I was honestly really surprised when I saw these fish had actually spawned, as I did not think that they were sexually mature old enough to even, spawn. It gave me a successful spawn. The fish we are talking about tonight is my trio of Balzani Geophagus. Geophagus is hands down one of my favorite fish, probably residing in the top 5 favorite fish. And there's so many subspecies of Geophagus that it's easy to find one that's going to fit your style, the coloration you like. And these are young fish. I've seen wild caught, fully grown adults, and they are immaculate. They're gorgeous to look at. So when I found these guys locally, I wanted them. I really wanted them. I wanted them in my possession. It was just kind of one of those redemption fish for me. Let's say I've seen these, I've kind of had them in my possession, but now I have successfully spawned these guys, and it is incredible to see. So I have a trio in the 65-gallon here next to me, and it really is a simple setup. We have a universal rock background. I put it in there because I'd say I wanted this to be a display tank in my studio. And this tank has already gone through a couple renditions actually, but here we are. We have a piece of spiderwood in the tank, and then I'm attempting to have some water sprite in an easy planter from Aquarium Co-op, but as Geophagus like to dig, they pull the plant out of the easy planter continually, but I still have it floating and it's still growing. It's still helping out the nitrates and all that in the tank. Then we have a simple gravel substrate. Now, a lot of people are going to say you have to have sand and different things, but Geophagus will dig no matter what you give them. That's why I specifically wanted a substrate in this tank, because honestly, they're typically more of a substrate spawner than they are actually anything else. But surprisingly, they did not spawn in the substrate. But trust me, I've seen them dig plenty. Where they actually spawned was on top of the Aquarium Co-op power head I have connected to a large Aquarium Co-op sponge filter in this tank. I have the extra flow because they dig in the substrate constantly, kicking up a lot of debris out of the gravel. So I wanted that extra mechanical filtration in there along with some extra flow, kind of push debris to the canister filter, help that bring that out. And then I came over to work and they spawned right on top of the power head. So when I saw this, I knew that I had an opportunity to now continually spawn. If you pay attention to the behavior of your fish, they will teach you something. What I learned from them is, yes, they can be a substrate spawner, but if I give them a flat spawning surface, like a rock, maybe a piece of tile, and give them a cave over that, very much like the terracotta pots we're using in the dragon puffer tank, where we broke them in half, did some things, chiseled them out a little bit to make a cave-like structure on top of a tile slate. I'm gonna mimic that in this tank here, and I really think by mimicking that, we can now give them an area to defend. What I mean by that is I saw the female aggressively defending her eggs. Now that was due to, we have a male, 2 females, but I also have 6 candy cane tetras in this tank to specifically act as a dinner fish, in hopes that if they did spawn, they have a reason to protect those eggs instead of get complacent and eat those eggs. So there were some different tactics I put into this. Now, without further ado, let me give you the rundown of the simple equipment I have used to be successful in hatching my spawns. Starting off, you are going to need some type of container to actually place your spawn in. As I said, they spawned on top of the power head, so instead of moving the eggs and risking damaging the eggs, I actually moved the entire power head into my container. I am using the specimen container from Aquarium Co-op. I also have just the regular Lee specimen container. I've used mason jars, I've used 1 gallon jars, I've seen people use bowls, I have large deli cups would work for this. You need some type of container that's going to allow you to place the spawn in. Now this can be done with a small terracotta pot if you have rams or another type of fish, potentially even geos that spawn inside the terracotta pot. You can do this on a small piece of tile, a long piece of tile, a rock, whatever it is. I've even had friends that have spawned corridoras, but then they actually move the eggs off the glass into a box and in essence do this exact same method. So container, get something to put your spawn in. I say it happened, they spawn on top of the power head. I moved the entire power head over. From there, you are going to need an air pump. I prefer the nano USB air pump from Aquarium Co-op. I prefer it because of how small the air pump is. It has the carabiner hook, so I can actually hang it in a convenient spot. And it's also the power this pump is going to bring. This air pump is actually a mighty little pump for the size of it, and it can definitely handle larger sponge filters and things, but it's not an aggressive air pump, if that makes any sense at all. But even then, I still took an air valve, spliced it into the line to allow me finer control over how much air is going into my container. The reason for the air pump is, and this is where item number 3 comes in, is an air stone or some rigid airline tubing. You need something to weigh that airline down, because the goal is to get air moving over the eggs in your container. So whatever container you're using, the goal is to get air moving over that. That's going to help reduce fungus. It's actually going to help increase livelihood, viability of these eggs. Is because think of a perfect example of this is a plecostomus. When they spawn inside of a cave, the male will sit there and fan the eggs. It's water movement over the eggs. It's bringing nutrients and removing debris off of these eggs. You need all that to happen. We are mimicking that with an air pump and an air stone. So in this case, I'm using the Never Clog air stone by Ziz from Aquarium Co-op. You can use whatever air stones on the market. You can use rigid airline tubing. I recommend an air stone because they're much easier to source, they're much more accessible, but if you already have some rigid airline tubing, it's going to do the same thing. From here, and this is going to be the most difficult thing for people to source, as I know there's some regulations against it, it's not being produced as much as it used to be, is the methylene blue. This is considered a medication, so I know in some countries it's not available. I like methylene blue because it's a fungal property. It's going to help with fungus. I know there's a much more scientific way to say that. It's going antifungal, has antifungal properties in the medication. A couple drops of methylene blue, so in this specimen container, I used 2 to 3 drops. I know that you can follow the dosage instructions, but you just need a couple drops in there, as this is going to be antifungal properties. Is you want to make sure these eggs do not fungus over, and in my opinion, the methylene blue is going to give you the best success for that. There are a kind of a cheeky alternative I've seen people use. I've personally never done it. In the future, I want to experiment with it. I've seen people put a Neocaridina shrimp, a single shrimp, inside of their container where they have eggs, as the shrimp will, I've seen reports of the shrimp eating any fungus that starts to grow on the eggs. I can't say if it's a tried or true method. My other thought process too is you could potentially even use like a catappa leaf, Indian almond leaf, in the container you're using to try and add that antifungal property to it. But methylene blue is definitely the one I've had the most success with. And from there, you wait, right? So now anywhere from 2 to 3 days typically is when your eggs are going to start hatching. At that point, I will start doing water changes where I'm slowly removing the methylene blue. Then once I have fully hatched eggs, I will do water changes to remove all of that methylene blue. But it really is, it's a simple procedure to set up to hatch successfully these spawns. So now that we have this geophagus spawn set up, I'm very excited to watch this come out. I do want to notate really quick, the main reason I'm using the specimen container in this instance, well, two reasons. I like that you can hang it on a tank. Now it's kind of all one reason. I like you can hang it on a tank. It gives me access to move it where I need it to be, move it to an airline, all these different things. But in this instance where in my studio, I don't necessarily heat this room as much as I heat the individual tanks because of the, well, it's my studio. I don't want to be in here working at 85-degree temperatures. I have the specimen container hanging on the tank, but I have the container inside of the tank. That will keep the temperature of that water in the container consistent. That way the eggs stay at a consistent temperature as well. You don't want major fluctuations happening as you're trying to spawn, hatch this spawn. So that's my little pro tip there, is that's the reason for using a specimen container, is I feel it's gonna give you the most flexibility of where you actually want to place your spawn, but then you can also use it to make sure your temperature in that stays consistent. So let's reconvene for now, catch back up here in the next day or two is when this spawn starts to hatch, and we'll definitely follow the progression from there. The audio in this video, the end of the video here, is probably gonna be a little different because we're down in the fish room now on my phone. It's kind of the easiest way to get kind of the close-up shot I wanted. You can see all the little baby geophagus here kind of crowding the corner because this is where the light is. So the eggs have hatched, and we have free-swimming little Balzani geophagus fry. So I moved, as soon as they became wigglers, as soon as the eggs hatched, I did move them into this specimen container, or not the specimen container, the breeder box. Is this breeder box with an air stone, running water into it, just hooked up here to a 10-gallon tank. Have a little bit of floating pearl weed in the breeder box with them. And this is to allow infusoria to grow on this, and I can target feed them in here. And then as soon as they get large enough, I'll move them just into the 10-gallon tank themselves, let them grow out further. So this is what baby geophagus look like, and what most egg-laying fish are going to look like when they're fry. But this is the final result of using the method we have there to get this. And I will say, after using this method, my hatch rate has increased significantly. So this is definitely a method that I encourage people to use, and I think it's going to increase your hatch rate. So this was exciting for me. This is the first time we spawned these guys, and to now have fry in here. So hopefully not a massive quality change in the video, but I do appreciate you guys watching. And let me know down in the comment section below, what is your go-to method on hatching eggs? Like, what is your go-to method on increasing a spawn rate and a hatch rate in your fish room? So guys, I generally do appreciate the support. I hope you're all having a good day, and we will see you guys on the next one.